Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 3 of the dissection of the Fool in the Tarot. So we were going over the archetypes last time. So it was sort of like the crocodile, the rich fisherman, and that kind of thing, and sort of I guess they're parts that sort of intersect, or what parts they sort of represented, because each culture is sort of different when we're looking at like what they describe as the Fool. So today we are going to be going over these little essays of truth and Liber Aleph, the Book of Wisdom or Folly, which are both are pretty important things to go over. So let's begin. So the first one is silence. That always makes sense, I guess. Let's bring that over a bit more. Make sure it's not in my face either. Okay. I'll move that over there. All right. Of all the magical and mystical virtues, of all the graces of the soul, of all the attainments of the spirit, none has been so misunderstood, even when at all apprehended, as silence. It would not be possible to enumerate the common errors. Nay, it may be said to think that it at all is in itself an error, for it is nature is pure being, that is to say nothing, so that it is beyond all intellection or intuition. Thus, then, the utmost of our essay can only be a certain wardenship, as it were, a tiling of the lodge wherein the mystery of silence may be consummated. Okay, so I think silence is pure being, I guess. And if there was pure silence in our being, we wouldn't really be conscious. We wouldn't be hearing anything. We wouldn't be having thoughts. We wouldn't be having emotions. It would just be nothingness. And I sometimes wonder if we're talking about consciousness, like at the very baseline level with like animals and stuff, if they're experiencing consciousness, and then maybe when you become human, there's a break in that, and then once that I guess that is re-emerged, alien races also may not even have consciousness, which means that has a lot of implications, and I've sometimes thought about that because both essentially marriage of their pure being. One already had their pure being fully intact, which is animals, and then the ones who had their pure being intact are also aliens. It's only humans and that kind of thing who don't. And maybe even some animals too, living alongside us humans. So we'll continue. Well, this attitude, there is a sound traditional authority. Hippocrates, god of science, is called the Lord of Defense and Protection. But his nature is by no means that negative and passive silence which the world commonly connotes. For he is the all-wandering spirit, the pure and perfect knight-errant, who answers all enigmas and opens the closed portal of the king's daughter. But silence in the vulgar sense is not the answer of the riddle of the Sphinx, it is that which is created by that answer. For silence is the equilibrium of perfection. So that Hippocrates is the omniform, the universal key to every mystery soever. The Sphinx is the puzzle of Pasil, the feminine idea of which there is only one complement, always different in form and always identical in essence. This is a signification of the picture of the god, shown more clearly in his dot from as the Fool of the Tarot and a Bacchus diffused, without equivocation when he appears as Baphomet. Right, so I think usually if there's some perfection in your being, there's actually more silence. And I think that's true because as long as there's two conflicting ideas like the shadow and that kind of thing, ideas you feel internally versus stuff that you've gotten outside that obviously intersect and clash, that is noise. And most people are filled to the brim with noise. And it's terrible. So in silence, perfect silence mentally, and I guess the body as well, is the goal. And I was just thinking about something, but I can't say that. Speaking of silence, but we'll continue now that we sort of gone through it. When we inquire more closely into his symbolism, the first quality which engages our attention is doubtless his innocence. Not without deep wisdom, he is called Twin of Horns, and this is the Aeon of Horus. It is he who sent forth Iwas, his minister, to proclaim its advent. The fourth power of the Sphinx is science. To us, then, who aspire to this power as the crown of our work, it will be of utmost value to attain his innocence in all its fullness. So I guess that's like innocence, in a sense. Yeah. We must understand, first of all, that the root of all moral responsibility on which man stupidly prides himself as distinguishing him from the other animals, tell me about it, is restriction, which is the word of sin. Indeed, there is truth in the Hebrew fable that the knowledge of good and evil brings forth death. To regain innocence is to regain Eden. We must learn to live without the murderous consciousness that every breath we draw swells the sails which bear our frail vessels to the port of the grave. We must cast our fear by love, seeing that every act is an orgasm. Their total issue cannot be but birth. Also, love is the law. Thus, every act must be righteousness and truth. By certain meditations, this may be understood and established, and this ought to be done so thoroughly that we become unconscious of our sanctification, for only then is innocence made perfect. Right. So animals kind of have restrictions and self-control and that kind of thing as well, to a certain extent. To think that animals don't have any sort of moral compass is retarded. Because if that was the case, dogs would betray their owners when times got tough. Of course, there's obviously limits to it. Like if the dog is starving and they're extremely hungry and you got a pit bull, he's gonna fucking eat you. But the point still remains, right? Animals do have some level of moral reasoning, right? Like orangutans, they tend to be rather docile, but they can fucking rip your arms off, and they're super strong. So even though they know they can, so always consider that. Yeah, love is the law. Thus, every act must be righteousness and truth. So basically, every act done out of love is correct. Every act done out of fear is wrong. And it might just be that simple, because I think the more my life goes on, I've sort of noticed that like it's usually a contraction of wisdom, and usually wisdom is quite simple, and it's usually being able to explain. It's explainable to a child. So there's that. This day, so we'll continue. This day is, in fact, a necessary condition of any proper contemplation of what we are accustomed to consider the first task of the aspirant, the solution of the question, what is my true will? For until we have become innocent, we are certain to try and judge our will from the outside, whereas true will should spring a fountain of light from within and flow unchecked, seething with love in the ocean of life. Yeah, that's definitely true. Because I think if you because usually when trying to find your true will, usually there's kind of stuff that you fancy yourself to be, or that you fancy yourself to, like if you fancy yourself to be a painter, or you fancy yourself to be an engineer or that kind of thing. And usually, sometimes that stuff has come from cultural conditioning, right? Because we've been taught to value certain professions and not others. And that, in and of itself, can cause all kinds of problems, right? And I've noticed recently that my actions are sort of more lining up, and I feel better doing them, right? And it's not even like I really consciously tried to direct myself towards it. It's more just happened. But like even then, I still falter, as it is kind of what we do as humans. Okay. Anyway, this is the true idea of science. It is our will which issues perfectly elastic, sublimely protean to fill every interstice of the universe of manifestation which it means in its course. There's no gulf too great for its immeasurable strength, no strait too arduous for its imperturbable subtlety. It fits itself with perfect precision to every need. Its fluidity is the warrant of its fidelity. Its form is always varied by that of the particular imperfection which it encounters. Its essence is identical in every event. Always the effect of its action is perfection, that is, silence. And this perfection is ever the same, being perfect, yet ever different, because each case presents its own particular quantity and quality. It's impossible for inspiration itself to sound dithyramb of silence. For each new aspect of Hippocrates, it is worthy of the music of the universe throughout eternity. I have simply been led by my loyal love, that strange race among whom I find myself incarnated, to indite this poor stanza of the infinite epic of Hippocrates as being the facet of his for sun brilliance which has refracted the most needful light upon my own darkling entrance to his shrine of fulminating of ineffable Godhead. Yeah, so I guess like, I can't remember. There was like this Book of Lies entry called like the Gun Barrel or something. It was like, mighty, mighty is this, and erect is this will of mine. I've burned all up my my desires. So basically, once you sort of fulfill your desires and your dreams, I guess, there becomes silence, because you kind of know what it's like, or you know what to expect and that kind of thing. So, in a certain respect, actually, the whole point is to not become a monk and go, meditate and hope for silence. Because if you still have, I guess, desire, I don't think desire can't be killed. It'll just sort of be pushed. It'll just be pushed down into your body and separated, and it'll cause illness and other kinds of stuff. So, and there's someone I was watching on YouTube called Spiritual Renaissance. Go watch him as well. He's a great watch. He sort of talks about like being in ashrams and people who have just gone straight to like the monk path, and he says like he's looked in. They said they are so restless, man. They clearly are not happy and all whatever kind of thing. So you actually got to go fulfill your desires, people. You got to go out and live life, because that's the whole fucking point. We are just here for the experience, people. And like, I've been sort of guilty of just been like so hell-bent on attainment and shit like that I've like completely lost sight of what the whole point was. And it still gets me to this day, man. Like, because like I'm as much as I've learned and as much wisdom I have gained, there's still like things I haven't really fulfilled yet, and it's taken me a long time. Anyway, we should continue. I praise the luxuriant rapture of innocence, the virile and pentamorphous ecstasy of all fulfillment. I praise the crowned and conquering child whose name is force and fire, whose subtlety and strength make sure serenity, whose energy and endurance accomplish the attainment of the Virgin of the Absolute, who, being manifested, is the player upon the sevenfold pipe, the great gold pan, and being withdrawn into the perfection that he willed is silence. Okay, yeah. So when we're talking about Virgo the Virgin, I know for a fact that it sort of implies this return to like your innocence, to your child, that's sort of what the Virgin is represented, and it's represented in its most feminine form because it's water of earth, which is what I am. I'm a Virgo, baby. But it's the same sort of thing, right? Virgo is about this sort of return into silence, more or less. Or the hermit and that kind of thing. Man veiled in woman form and so on and so forth. Okay, we've got a few more little ones. So from Liber Aleph, the Book of Wisdom or Folly. Yeah, so that has a lot of essays actually. Quite a lot. So the book was written to Frater Akkad by Aleister Crowley. I think it was after he figured out like the Kabbalistic key. I think it was after the fact, not before. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's continue to See what Crowley had for a card. O my son, in this, the colophon of mine epistle, will I recall the title and superscription thereof, that is, the Book of Wisdom or Folly. I proclaim blessing and worship unto Nuith, our Lady, and her Lord, Hadith, for the miracle of the anatomy of the child Rahul Kuit, as it is shewed in the design Minitum Mundum, the tree of life. For though wisdom be the second emanation of his essence, there is a path to separate and to join them. The reference thereof being Aleph, that is one indeed, but also 111 in his full orthography, to signify the most holy Trinity, and by metathesis it is thick darkness and sudden death. Yeah, so being 0 and also 111, which is, that's the number of truth, which is kind of interesting there. It's a number that appears a lot in my life in ways that I can't really explain. But let's continue. This is also the number of Om, which is Amon, and the root sound of Omni, or in Greek, Pan. I did not know that because Omni means all. So, and then Pan means all. So think about that actually, and I guess in some respects, Baphomet is sort of representative of like the god Pan. And it is number of the sun, 666. So yeah, because I try to attribute the sun to Pan for the simple fact that like no matter what angle you look at the sun, there's light on it. There's not a reflection. It's not half light, half dark. It's just light. Like the sun is just pure light, and it's illuminating, and it's generative. And I think that's a big difference. But like also, it's also important to remember that the sun also casts a shadow. Even this pure consciousness casts a shadow. And I think it's a hard thing for people to swallow. Okay, let's continue. Yet is the Atu or Thoth that correspondeth thereunto marked with 0, and its name is Mat. Whereof I have spoken formerly, and its image is the full, O my son. Gather thou all these limbs together into one body, and breathe upon it with thy spirit, that it may live. Then do thou embrace it with my lust of thy manhood, and go in unto it, and know it. So shall you be one flesh. Now at last, in the reinforcement and ecstasy of this consummation, thou shalt wit by what inspiration thou didst choose thy name in the gnosis, I mean Parzival, Durain Thor. Yeah, the perfect fool, I think it meant, or I can't remember. But yeah, fool. The true knight that won kingship in Montserrat and made whole the wound of Amfortas and ordered country to right service and regained the lands and revived the miracle of the Sangral. Yeah, also upon him did he accomplish his word in the end. Hoschen Hels Wanda Elosang Dem Esolo. I probably butchered that. This is the last word of the song that thine uncle Richard Wagner made for worship of this mystery. Understand though this, O my son, so as I take leave of thee in this epistle, that the summon of wisdom is the opening of the way that leadeth up unto the crown and essence of all, to the soul of the child Horus, the Lord of Aeon. This is the path of the pure fool. Okay, I think that's just like, yeah, going to the summit, taking home the Grail, that is the path of the pure fool. And it's sort of the same sort of story as that we were talking about with archetypes, like with Parzival, who was like a fisherman's son, who eventually joined a bunch of knights. Okay. De Oracolo Samo. And who is this pure fool? Lo, in the sagas of old time, legend of Skald, of Bard, of Druid, cometh he not in green like spring, although great fool, though water that art air. Though water that art air. That's actually a good point. Because like air, because when you're looking at spagyric alchemy and just alchemy in general, in Homer's Chain, basically since it's one universal mind, everything is sort of one element. Like water can transmute into earth through like dropping temperature, and then earth, water, then it goes into air, then fire. So there's actually two of that. And there's also sublimation where it goes straight from earth to air, which is like steam or condensation or that kind of thing. So there's basically this constant transmutation between the elements, and like people can be frozen solid, and I can be made into also froze into fire. So yeah, though water that art air, in whom all complex is resolved. Yeah, though in ragged raiment, with the staff of Priapus and the wineskin, though standeth upon the crocodile like a whore pakrat, and the great cat leapeth upon thee. Yea, and more also. I have known thee who thou art. Back is diffuse, none and two, in thy name. Had to do that. Now at the end of all, do I come to being of thee, beyond by coming, and I cry aloud my word, as it was given unto me by thine uncle, Alcofribus Nacia, the oracle of the bottle of Bakbak, and the word is drink. He cometh in spring. Interesting. It's funny because that's when September is. This is around my birthday, which is spring in Australia. So the fool cometh in spring. You're not green like spring? Anyway, let's continue. Recall, O my son, the fable of the Hebrews, which they brought from the city Babylon, how Nebuchadnezzar, the great king, being afflicted in his spirit, did depart from among men for 7 years' space, eating grass as doth an ox. Now this ox is the letter Aleph, and is that Atu of Thoth, whose number is 0, and whose name is Mart, truth, or Malt, the vulture. The All-Mother, being an image of Our Lady, kneweth, but also is called the Fool, which is passful, Darain 4, so referred to wait that walketh in the way of the tower. Also he is Hippocrates, the child Horus, walking, as said Dal the Butterway that became king in his somebody, upon the lion and the dragon, that is, he is in unity with his own secret nature, as I have shewn thee in my word concerning the Sphinx. O my son, yes to Eve came the spirit upon me, that I also should eat grass of the Arabians, and by virtue of the bewitchment thereof, behold that which might be upon the enlightenment of mine eyes. Now then of this may I not speak, seeing that it involved the mystery of the transcending of time, so that in 1 hour of our terrestrial measure did I gather the harvest of an aeon. In 10 lives I could not declare it. Okay. I think that's just more like the whole symbolism of eating grass. It's obviously related to Earth and I guess Taurus as well, and the bull. And I guess it's like the foolishness and madness that comes with, I guess, being a pure fool. And it's just also things like inversion. I'm not going to pretend to really fully understand that, and I don't. But that's sort of my take on it. Anyway, let's continue. Because I have actually understood quite a lot more just doing this whole video, so I might do it again in like 10 years' time. Might do that once I understand everything a bit more. But the point is, I know I'm talking not as much nonsense as some of those other people that you see on YouTube, I promise you. All right. Yet even as a man may set up a memorial or symbol to import 10,000 times 10,000, so may I strive to inform thine understanding by hieroglyph, and he shall thine own experience serve us, because a token of remembrance sufficeth him that is familiar with the matter, which to whom that knoweth it not should be made manifest. No, not in a year of instruction. Here first then is one amid the uncounted wonders of that vision. Upon a field blacker and richer than velvet was the sun of all being, alone. Then about him were little crosses, Greek, overrunning the heaven. These changed from form to form, geometrical, marvel devouring marvel, 1,000 times 1,000 in their course and sequence, until by their movement was the universe turned into the quintessence of light. Moreover, at another time did I behold all things bulle, iridescent and luminous, self-shining in every color and every combination of color, myriad pursuing myriad, until by their perpetual beauty they exhausted the virtue of my mind to receive them and whelmed it. So that I was fain to withdraw myself from the birth and of that brilliance. Yet, O my son, the sum of all this amounteth not to the worth of one dawn glimmer of our true vision of holiness. Don't really know what to think about that. Some of these essays are quite meaty, let's put it that way. Or it could just be Crowley taking the piss. I don't know. He likes doing that. Anyway, now for the chief of that which was granted unto me, it was the apprehension of those willed changes of a transmutation of the mind which led into truth, being as ladders unto heaven, or so I called them at that time. Seeking for a phrase to admonish the scribe that attended on my words, to grave a balustre upon the steel of my working. But I make effort in vain, O my son, to record this matter in detail, for it is the quality of this grass to quicken the operation of thought, it may be 1,000-fold, and moreover to figure each step in images complex and overpowering in beauty, so that one hath not time wherein to conceive, much less to utter any word for a name of any one of them. Also, such way the multiplicity of these ladders and their equivalents, that the memory holdeth no more any one of them, but only a certain comprehension of the method, wordless by reason of its subtlety. Now, therefore, must I make by my will with a concentration mighty and terrible of my thought, that I may bring forth this mystery in expression. For this method is of virtue and profit, but it may though come easily and with delight to the perfection of truth. It is no odds from what thought thou makest the first lead in thy meditation, so thou mayest know every road endeth in on Salva and the temple of the Sangral. I think this sort of goes back to silence, and I guess understanding, because once you've attained a certain level of understanding and you understand like principles as above, so below, and other things, you can understand things without knowledge. That's actually what can happen, because like that's what it is. It's contraction. So gnosis, I find, is more of a contraction of the understanding of just certain principles, and once you understand it, like all of these things just actually naturally open up other worlds, and you can instantly understand certain things and certain systems without having any education or even being exposed to it ever. So I think that's like the Temple of the Sangral, because it's this infinite goblet of, I guess, of eternal life, and like the fountain of youth and that kind of thing. Yeah, all right. How many we got to go? Okay, what time? Okay, 20 minutes. I believe generally on the ground both of theory and experience, so little as I have, that a man must first be initiate and established in our law before he may use this method. For it is an implication of our secret enlightenment concerning the universe, how its nature is utterly perfection. Now, every thought is a separation. Yeah. So, like, before we continue that, yeah, every thought is separation. The moment you're thinking, you're separating yourself. And yeah, overthinking separates the mind from the body. That song from Lateralus, and I'm starting to sort of understand what that means. Thought is actually not the greatest thing. You should think. That's not to say you shouldn't, okay? Because we're already in a world where we kind of need to use our intellect, and it is what guides us, right? But if too much thinking, it actually separates you. And it can actually go against you, and you just become a windbag. Yep. And because thought, I guess, generates its opposite. And that's sort of what happened with the universe. And same thing that we've sort of been talking about this whole time through this whole dissection of the fall. But let's go on. Now, every thought is a separation, and the medicine of that is to marry each one with its contradiction. As I have shewed formerly in many writings, and thou shalt clap on the one on to the other with vehemence of spirit swiftly as light itself, that the ecstasy be spontaneous. So therefore it is expedient that thou have travelled already in this path of antithesis, knowing perfectly the answer to every grief or problem, and thy mind ready therewith. For by the property of this grass, all passeth with speed incalculable of wit, and hesitation should confound thee, breaking down the ladder and throwing back thy mind to receive impression from environment as at thy first beginning. Verily, the nature of this method is solution and the destruction of every complexity by explosion of ecstasy, as every element thereof is full by its correlative and is annihilated since it loses separate existence in the orgasm that is consummated with the bed of thy mind. Okay, so yeah, he's talking about like separate, like the two separations between two different thoughts, but like having them come together, the contradictory ideas. Is orgasm, or it's union, it's love. That's what it is. And the more you do this in your own mind, and the more you do this in, I guess, even things externally, the more closer you are to the divine. But also, like there is a path people don't think about. Like when this stuff contracts, you actually do lose something. Like in a sense, your thought. You are simultaneously much more well-versed to understand pretty much everything, but also the complexity in some respects of your thoughts can also contract. So your thought processes become simpler, not more complex. So there's that. And I guess the simpler it is and the less dissonance there is, the closer you are to truth and the closer you are to will. Because there's no break in that sort of thing. Okay. Thou knowest right well, O my son, how a thought is imperfect in two dimensions, be separate from its contradiction, but also constrained in its scope. Because by that contradiction we do not commonly complete the universe, save only that of its discourse. Thus, if we contrast health with sickness, we include in their sphere of union no more than one quality that may be predicted of all things. Furthermore, it is for the most part not easy to find or formulate the true contradiction of any thought as a positive idea, but only as a formal negation in vague terms, so that the ready answer is but antithesis. Thus to white one putteth not the phrase all that which is not white, for this is void, formless, it is neither clear, simple, nor positive in conception, but one answer of black. Will this have an image of his significance? So then the cohesion of antithetical destroyeth them only in part, and only cometh instantly conscious of the residue that is unsatisfied or unbalanced, whose eidolon leapeth in thy mind with splendor and joy unspeakable. Let not this deceive thee, for its existence proveth its imperfection, and thou must call forth its mate and destroy them by love as with the former. This method is continuous and proceedeth ever from the gross to the fine, and from the particular to the general, dissolving all things into one substance of light. Okay, there you go. So it doesn't matter, like this process of like marrying opposites, it will go on until the universe is done and dusted, and once all is said and done, it doesn't actually stop. This alchemical process of marrying opposites and contradictory ideas, forms and ideas, and like whether it be in philosophy, chemistry, mathematics, like literally anything, this process applies everywhere. There is not a single thing in this world that is not subject to this process. It's just the way it is, and it's sort of what the hexagram sort of represents. It's the masculine and feminine sort of forming, and it creates the sun and the light and Pan, which is sort of what the devil is sort of representative of, and then becoming light. All right. That was a mouthful. Okay. Learn now that impressions of sense have opposites readily conceived, as long to short or light to dark, and so with emotions and perceptions, as love to hate or false to true, But the more violent the antagonism, the more it is bound in illusion, determined by relation. Thus the word long hath no meaning save it be referred to a standard, but love is not thus obscure because hate is its twin. Partaking bountifully of a common nature therewith. Thou hear this. It was given unto me in my vision of the Aethers when I was in the wilderness of Sahara by Tolga upon the brink of the great eastern erg, that above the abyss contradiction is unity, and that nothing could be true save by virtue of the contradiction that is contained in itself. Behold, therefore, in this method, those shall come presently to ideas of this order that include in themselves their own contradiction and have no antithesis. Here then is fire lever of antimony broken in the fire hand, yet being in true balance, though mayest soar passionate and eager from heaven to heaven, by the expansion of thine idea and its exaltation, or by concentration, as thou understandest by virtue of thy studies in the book of the law, the word thereof concerning our lady kneweth and hadith, that is the core of every star. And that last going upon thy ladder is easy if thou be truly initiate, for the momentum of thy force in transcendental antithesis serveth to propel thee, and the emancipation from the fetters of thought that thou hast won in the praxis of art maketh the whirlpool and gravitation of truth of competence to draw thee unto itself. Yes, that's the word long have no meaning. So I guess what we refer to as long is like a matter of subjectivity, same with short. But like it's in what we refer to as love and what we refer to as hate, it can also sort of be a bit different as well. But yeah, I find it interesting that hate is probably more to do with two positive forces or two negative forces repelling each other. Because have you noticed with like two magnets, they repel each other? Like if they're on the same charge, if like two negative forces repel each other, two positive forces repel each other. So that is a part of it, and I think that's also like a part of like human sexuality, right? Like, of course, like this isn't like, I just want to make it very clear, this is not about like sexuality with like gay or lesbian and that kind of thing. But generally speaking, most people if you're a man, you're generally going to be repelled at the thought of being with a man. And as a woman, you're generally going to be repelled at the thought of being with a woman. But hey, if you, but like, look, like I'm just talking in a very abstract form, so people sort of get the idea of what we're getting at. Because man and woman are opposites after all. And I'm completely open to the idea of that people do whatever they want to do, whether it be bi or gay or whatever. I don't care. That was just a matter of arbitration for me. Okay, let's go into this. This is the profit of mine intoxication of this holy herb, the grass of the Arabs, that it hath shewed me this mystery with many others, and not as a new light, for I have that aphoton, but by its swift synthesis and manifestation of a long sequence of events in a moment. The grass of the Arabs, is he fucking referring to cannabis or something like that? Not sure. Anyway, I had wit to analyze this method and to discover its essential law, which before have escaped the focus of the lens of mine understanding. Yeah, O my son, there is no true path of light, save that which I have formerly made plain. Yet in every path is profit, if thou be cunning to perceive it and to clasp it. For we win truth oftentimes by reflection, or by the composition and selection of an artist to his presentation thereof. When else we were blind thereunto, lacking his mode of light. Yet were that art of none available unless we had already the root of that truth in our nature and a bud ready to flower at the summoning of that sun. In witness, nor a boy nor a stone have knowledge of the section of a cone and their properties, but thou mayest teach these to the boy by right presentation, because he have in his nature those laws of mind that are consonant with our art mathematical, and have need only of fledging. I may say this so that he apply them consciously to work when all being in truth, that is, in the necessary relations that rule our illusion, he cometh in course of apprehension. Yeah, so, yeah, so there's no true path of light. So I think that's really important, right? Because many people have gained enlightenment through many different avenues. And I think, and I remember once saying, hearing someone say, that there is as many paths to enlightenment and to the light as there are people. And I'd actually have to agree that's true. Some people first find it through, like, I guess, I prefer to call them midway sort of mystery schools, such as the Gnostic Christians, the Sufis, Islamic Sufis, the Shivite Hindus and stuff like that. Because I guess in one respect you're sort of scared to not abandon the idea of Christ entirely, but you know very well that on some level you know there's higher truth involved, and then that symbolism gets twisted on its head and that kind of thing. Or you can find it just through self-help, man, if that's your thing. Some people have become, as much as I fucking despise things like self-help, some people have found that Tony Robbins and that kind of shit, as much as of a hack I think he is, apparently some people have come to know themselves much better and their lives have greatly improved. So, but that's just me, man. I personally wouldn't recommend Tony Robbins based on my experience. Anyway, guys, that is the end of that. So I guess we can look at a quick look at some of this 777 data. So key scale 11, like that's the truth. The number of magical expansion, actually. Mystical numbers of the Sephiroth 66. So like Sun, the perfected man, some Greek god, Zeus. I think that's referring to like the sinusoidal wave, and that's sort of where we were talking about archetypes before. Zeus in over here. Full number true, Sora's cause, bodily functions. I think that's supposed to be thought, not though. Yeah. So because now we're just looking at data of all these different tarot trumps and what they represent, and what happens, and it's sort of because the tarot in combination with the Kabbalah sort of creates an explosion of metaphysical principles and ideas that are all packed into one thing, which is impressive in of itself. So, like, yeah, bodily functions, speaking. Okay. Respiratory organs. So, yeah, go to nofaithinthehumanrace.com if you are very interested in reading that stuff yourself. I am now going to go read something from Lomilo Duquette's thing. I am... So, hold on. The Chariot. Yeah. We're going to read a bit from Lomilo Duquette, which I've got in this book right here. So... the Magus, and the next one's a Fool. Cool. So, yep, I got it right here. All right. So, the spirit of the Aether, elemental trump of air, original design, a bearded ancient seen in profile. He laughs, bearing a sphere containing illusion in his left hand, but over his right shoulder, a star 463 lines in his right. A lion and a dragon are at his feet, but he seems unaware of their attacks or caresses. Fucking that's the story of my life, man. Fucking hell. And I think that's the story of most people's lives in out like they're being attacked and that kind of thing. So, okay. No naught, always a lawful to innocence. How much have we sort of dissected what's good and what's evil? And I don't think morality... I think morality isn't entirely about... displeasing God or that kind of thing. I actually think it's more about what actually makes sense. Like, it kind of makes sense to not fucking steal from people, man. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. For many reasons. Like, peace of mind. Like, and you know, and since we're a part of one universal consciousness, it makes sense not to be a bastard to humans. Or to not or harm animals in a certain way when you go hunting them and that kind of thing. Because if it's all one thing, then what you're doing is you're doing it to yourself. And we don't know what's really going to happen once we die, whether we repeat the same life, whether there is that weird karmic sort of... Like, I don't know, man, because there's too many ideas. I don't think there's, like, a real heaven or hell where there's eternal torture or eternal paradise. But actually, while we're on the subject of eternal hell and eternal paradise, when you deny Christ, which is the Christos, your soul... When you deny your soul, you are in hell, and if you eternally reject the Christos, you will eternally be suffering. And I guess when you're halfway through things, you're going through purgatory, and then you finally get to Mount Paradiso. Okay, pure folly is the key to initiation. That's definitely true. I've done some stupid shit to get here, man. Silence breaks into rapture. Be neither man nor woman, but both in one. Be silent, babe in the egg of blue, that thou mayst grow to bear the lance and growl. Wander alone and sing, in the king's palace his daughter awaits thee. Okay, Harris to Crowley. So this is a quote from Harris to Crowley. I'll struggle with the fool, he does writhe about, I can't see him. Has he got any children with him, and is not his bag a jester's balloon? That innocent gaiety asks for the brush of a saint, and my lines come out like treacle. I wish I could paint in crystals. This may seem odd to you, but I'm going to open my remarks about... Okay, yeah, so now we're going to the first thing. This is not actually too much by the looks of it, actually. So, guess we are actually going to read everything and get the whole fucking thing done today. Isn't that wonderful, people? All right. I wish... this may seem odd to you, but I'm going to open my remarks about the first tarot trump, the Fool, by quoting what Crowley wrote about the last trump, the universe. In the card itself, there is consequently a glyph of the completion of the great work. In its highest sense, exactly as the R2 of the Fool symbolizes its beginning. The Fool is the negative issuing into manifestation. The universe is that manifestation, its purpose accomplished, ready to return. The 20 cards that lie between these two exhibit the great work and its agents in various stages. Okay, yeah, so it's just talking about two sides of the coin. Descent from, like, the air, the sinusoidal wave, and then into Earth. Then reintegration. I think that's all... He talks about that with like, the 10 of coins, which is, like, the lowest card, but it's also, in a sense, the highest. And so on and so forth. The Fool, the highest, but also, in a sense, the lowest. In essence, there are not really 22 trumps. There is only one, the Fool. Yeah, so like I was saying, like everything issues from the Fool, and he's multicolored, and he's dressed in motley. So basically, if you look around, the Fool is all of these trumps essentially. Every single one of them, including the Sephiroth, and it's both in a literal context and I guess in a metaphysical context and a bunch of others. All other trumps live inside and issue from the Fool. So yeah, the Fool's the egg. Okay, wait, let's go back. Be neither man nor woman, but both in one. Be silent, babe in the egg of blue, and that mayst grow to bear the glands and the growl. Neither man or woman. Interesting. Okay, so of all 78 tarot cards, none is more revered and misunderstood. Yep. In the Book of Thoth, Crowley devotes over 24 pages to this card alone, and in doing so gives us a whirlwind tour of greatest hits of Greek, Roman, Hindu, Hebrew, pagan, and Christian mythology. The most familiar image of the Fool is that of a young vagabond, his head wreathed with laurel or ivy. He holds a white rose and wears a motley coat. A ritual rests a staff at the end of which is tied a bag or a satchel. A dog or a crocodile sometimes nips at his feet. He strolls mindlessly toward the edge of a high mountain cliff, his eyes cast irresponsibly skyward. He still has one foot upon the earth, the other poised to take this fateful step into the abyss. Lady Harris's Fool is different. This Fool has both feet planted firmly in the air. So you're already flying. Why is the Fool such a mysterious and awesome character? Isn't he just a medieval cast member, gesturing to the Emperor, Empress, and Hierophant? Perhaps. That picture certainly fits many of the traditional images of this card. From a mystical point of view, however, the Fool is much more. Actually, much, much less. Even someone like me who understands like contradiction and opposites and like even constantly hearing it's taken me for a fucking spin. The Fool propounds the ultimate riddle. Creation and the meaning of life are an incomprehensible joke. The Fool is more than God. The Fool is the nothing we refer to when we say nothing created God, nothing beyond God, nothing is greater than God. The Fool is perfectly empty-headed, for it is there where anything inside his innocence would be destroyed. Damn. Zam. Imagine just realizing how much your head's pumped full of like theological and ideological propaganda. You're not innocent, people. Learn to work through it. As the first trump, it is only logical that the Fool to be considered key number 1. He is not, however, key number 1. He is key number 0. This is the Fool's first and greatest trick, creating the one and consequently everything else out of nothing. That's crazy, your rational mind says. And your rational mind is correct up to a point. It doesn't make sense that something can come out of nothing. If we wanted to personify the irrational concept of something coming from nothing, however, what better mascot could we choose than that of an idiot who makes no sense? A fool. That is fucking fantastic. It doesn't make sense that this universe fucking exists at all. Think about that. Like, how the fuck are we here, man? Look, like, how did this matter spring into being? How does a lot of this this intelligence self-organize itself? How does synchronicity happen? Like, there's so much bullshit that doesn't make sense in this universe that it's kind of mind-boggling, actually. I'm sure there's like a mechanistic basis of it all, but ultimately, how the universe started in the first place it doesn't really make sense. Something from nothing and nothing from something. Like, what moved the first thing, right? Something to think about. I have seen several early drafts that Crowley rejected. To my absolute delight, I discovered that 2 of them bore the unmistakable hip image of Harpo Marx. How perfect. In Marx Brothers films, Harpo was the archetypal fool. Even his name portrayed his identity. Not only was the girl-chasing clown who made fools of all the straight-laced and uptight characters, he did it all without saying a word. He was silent like the very mythological characters from whom the fool is constructed. Silent like Hippocrates, the Greek god of innocence. Silent like Dionysus when he was asked by King Pentheus what is truth. Silent like Christ standing before Pilate when he was asked the exact same question. Truth is silence, people. That is truth. Like, truth in its ultimate form is just silence. And, like as much of it's kind of funny because the more you think about it, you realize that this whole universe is actually a lie. Your life is a lie, no matter what way you look at it. No matter how enlightened you get in this this plane, your life is a lie. Think about that. Absolutely insane. The Fool of the Thoth Tarot retains the familiar elements of traditional decks, but boldly asserts that the character we are dealing with is none other than the inscrutable supreme deity of every age and culture. He is the pagan green man of spring, Parsifal the pure fool who wins the Holy Grail, Horpakra the innocent Egyptian lord of science who reads upon the crocodile god Sebek the devourer, his wild eyes, horns, tiger pine cones, graves, and ivy show him to be the secret essence of the cosmos, worshipped for centuries as Dionysus Zagreus, the horned son of Zeus, and Bacchus Diffuse, the drunken and mad omnisexual god of divine ecstasy. Lady Harris's Fool is a cornucopia of sacred images, many of which reveal themselves only after long meditation and the aid of a magnifying glass. Yeah, there's actually some weird imagery that you can find that like are not obvious, and think there's like a moon in the full tarot. I know that because I've seen it before, but I can't actually fucking find it now, which is interesting. He burst into midair of existence from behind the three swirling rings that issue from the return to his heart. These are the three veils of negativity. Oh, so that's what they represent. Ein, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Hour. The Kabbalists teach gave birth to the singularity of creation. His satchel is filled with the entire universe in the form of planetary and zodiacal coins. Actually, I gotta see that. I gotta see that now. Yeah, right there. Can you see it? Planetary and zodiacal. Like, he's got the whole fucking universe with him. There you go. So yeah, the Fool contains the whole universe. The Fool is the Holy Spirit itself. The dove, the symbol of the Holy Spirit. The butterfly, symbol of transformation. Winged globe, symbol of mercurial air. And the Egyptian vulture goddess, Maut. Pour forth from the Holy Grail in the Fool's right hand. Like the Virgin Mary, Maut became impregnated by the Spirit, breath of the wind. The whole picture, Crowley tells us, is a glyph of the creative light. With that in mind, I would finally like to draw the reader's attention to the image of the sun covering the groin area of the Fool, and the almost invisible image of the moon directly above the head of the crocodile. Yeah, there you go. Almost invisible. Yeah, it's right there, I think. Yeah, like I was talking about. Between these two primary symbols of male and female are what Crowley describes as twin infants embracing on the middle of a spiral. Above them hangs the benediction of three flowers in one. We can only speculate on the meanings of these symbols. In my opinion, it is highly likely that they allude, at least in part, to certain aspects of sexual alchemy that Crowley was not inclined to dwell upon in detail in published materials. Certainly, the power and unlimited potential of the generative process might fall appropriately into the category of the creative light. Other speculations aside, here at the very beginning of our study of the other cards, I ask that you not lose sight of the obvious fact that the Fool's genitals are hidden by the sun. Yeah, so like the phallus and the cup. Think about that for a second. So I think if you were to like maybe change the gender of the Fool, which is usually typically male, into like female, it would be more appropriate to put the moon there and then maybe the sun at the bottom. But yeah, that's actually the that's all of it, folks. So really, the Fool is an incredibly complex card, and we just done like what 2 hours of just dissecting it, and that's just one card, people. 2 multiplied by 22, we could go on for about 44 hours just looking at cards and that kind of thing, just the major trumps. So the next one would be the Magus. The Magus of power: skill, wisdom, adroitness, elasticity, craft, cunning, deceit, theft. Sometimes occult wisdom or power, sometimes a quick impulse, a brainwave. It may imply messages, business transactions, interference of learning, or intelligence with the matter at hand. But we are going to leave it there. Thank you for everyone who joined in to watch this video. I appreciate every single one of you. I will see you next time. Please like, share, and subscribe on my Substack and my YouTube. See you later.